Next up is Tracy Boshard. Now, Tracy has spent most of her life traveling abroad, lucky lady, studying, learning, and making her living with language in one way or another. She was the editor for the Asahi newspaper in Tokyo and taught English and edited books in Hiroshima. She also taught English at Simon Fraser University. Last November, Tracy opened the Conversation, an art gallery and conversation hub where English language learners can come to practice their English and where anyone can meet people from other cultures. Tracy currently lives in Coquitlam with her husband Scott and 2 children, Samantha and Angus. And now a few words about her presentation. Language is how we give expression to ideas, feelings, images, and so on. But it's also as much about what remains unexpressed. Language can bridge cultural chasms, or it can prevent people from coming together. These contradictions are fascinating and worth exploring. Her 20 images will accompany us as we look at some of the ways culture, context, and perspective affect the way we communicate in the world. So Tracy, if you could please come up and tell us a bit about your life as a conversationaut.
Evening. Just a little train of thought here. Okay, in his book, The Stuff of Thought, Steven Pinker asks whether the attacks on the World Trade Center were one event or two. On the one hand, 2 buildings were hit by 2 planes at 2 different times, but they were the result of a single plan and a single group. The insurance company says it was a single event with a single payout. The leaseholder claims it was 2 events. $3.5 billion hangs in the balance. So the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers, a set of twins. Is it one or are they 2? Is a pair of opposites 1 or 2? Such is the paradox of language. Just as we can employ a single word like event to describe 2 separate incidents, we can also have 2 opposing terms to describe a single event. For example, in 1979, the Vietnamese army moved into Cambodia. Now, some newspapers called it a liberation. Others called it an invasion. Body art. Tattoos and piercings, are they adornments or are they mutilation? Or graffiti, is it art or is it vandalism? And if language is an expression of shared experience, why are there such polarizing terms for the same work? So maybe it is as Pinker says, that language is a window into human nature, exposing deep and universal features of our thoughts and feelings. As far back as the Renaissance, the window metaphor was used in paintings to illustrate the 3-dimensional world, echoed by a frame and situated in our normal space. Metaphor can help us make the shifts in perception when we attempt to reconcile 2 opposing terms that describe the same thing. We are forced to ask not, what is it, but what does it mean? In the movie Falling Down, Michael Douglas has been downsized, a symbol of a disappearing middle class. He's confronted by gang members who point at graffiti and accuse him of not heeding the no trespassing sign. He's unable to read the signs and sees them instead as a defacement. They accuse him of loitering, but he feels like he's resting. And so begins his shift in perception. Some symbols most everyone can identify. The Coca-Cola logo. Is it American mass appeal or is it cultural imperialism? This example of subvertising is meant to make us feel uncomfortable because it holds conflicting ideas simultaneously. In our highly specialized world, what are the languages we speak? Computer software designers create programming languages. Lawyers speak legalese. The sea of languages we swim in can conceal as often as reveal. This from the VigilantCitizen.com. People who were of one language and speech journeyed from east to west, like those who have been tried and proved as master masons. In the land of Shinar, they built their high tower of confusion. And so another language emerges. The masons, the architects, and the builders have created a language, a way of conversing without speech. Architecture, like any language, has its syntax, its grammar, and its semantics. It depends on rhythm and meter to evoke emotion. To some, the Tower of Babel story is a cautionary tale of man's overreaching ascension to the heavens. The city and its tower, as it's referred to in the Bible, is, according to some, a reversal of its architectural predecessor, the ziggurat. The ziggurats were built not to ascend to heaven, but to provide a dwelling place for the gods on earth. Windowless and accessible only to the priests, they provided little opportunity to glimpse what was concealed within. Until recently, banks like the ziggurats had few windows. The architecture spoke to the concealing of its sacred contents. Today, banks are only windows. They reveal all. Their design is meant to convey trust through transparency rather than security. Still, other structures conceal and protect with confounding blueprints. Lao Tzu said that the words of truth are always paradoxical. At Ryanji Temple in Kyoto, the language is stone. The arrangement of 15 rocks rests on a bed of white gravel in such a way that only 14 are visible at any time. In the Buddhist world, the number 15 is equated with completeness, so you must be able to see the entire garden to make it a whole experience. In the conditions of this world, though, this is impossible. At the Music Garden in Toronto, landscape architecture is in conversation with music. But there exists a much deeper relationship between the language of music and the language of color. In fact, in many ways, they share the same grammar and vocabulary. Tone, for example, is used to express quality of color as well as quality of sound. And the music, like colors, can invoke the element at the elemental level. They can provoke physical responses with an immediacy that words can't. Yellow can be used to express warmth and happiness, as gold, prosperity, wealth, and abundance. Conversely, yellow is cowardice, and as amber warns us to proceed with caution. Blue is sad, but blue skies reflect optimism. Like words, colors can be experienced or understood in opposing ways. In speech, we see terms like fast, which can be understood either as rapid or unmoving. The verb to clip, for example, can be to cut apart, or it can be to bind together. Oversight is watchful control, or conversely, neglect. Ursula Le Guin said, "To light a candle is to cast a shadow. All things have their opposite, but they are not at odds, they are reconciled. They are two sides of a coin or two ends of a scale. Heat and cold will both burn at their extremes. Fire and water will ultimately penetrate each other. Heat and moisture, yin and yang, contrary elements without which there can be no life." Thank you.